everyone, welcome back to Coffee with Crainer. Today I have an AI expert, Jake Shinkario, on the podcast. He is Chief Growth Officer at Cited.ai, but also has some other projects that we're going to be jumping into. Has done a few Ironmans.
I've done an Ironman.
Yeah, done an Ironman, a lot of triathlons.
Some triathlons, some ultras. It kind of depends what the year holds for me.
Absolutely. So a lot of cool stuff outside of the world of AI that we'll tap into, but I really appreciate you joining, Jake, and been seeing all your stuff on LinkedIn. I thought, hey, another young guy, he's in the tech space, and I thought it would be really cool to unpack what you do.
Awesome. Well, Lyndon, thanks for having me, man. I'm super excited to be here and jump right into things.
Awesome. So first off, where in Windsor Essex is your favorite place for coffee?
Oh my goodness, I'm a big Tallulah guy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where's I guess when you're at Tallulah, what do you usually get?
Just an Americano, man.
Americano,
Can't go wrong. Come on.
Yeah,
especially with this winter.
Just hot water and espresso shot.
That's it, man. What about you?
I like matcha. Okay. Although it doesn't make the stomach feel too good after.
No.
Or like a tea would be good.
A good tea.
Yeah. So
where's your spot?
Where's my spot? I don't think I've been asked this on the show. You're the first, Jake.
I'm the first. I'm honored.
Bucket List is great in Amherstburg. Love Caffeine and Co. So many great spots. I'm out in Amherstburg, which the coffee scene is incredible. So yeah, wherever the wind takes me.
I love it, man. It's a great answer.
So Jake, how did you get started in AI? I know you went to Queen's University. Did it start there? How did this begin for you?
Yeah, so funny enough, it began almost 10 years ago when the grand chess master at the time got beat by AlphaGo, which was just not even an LLM at the time. And I just thought, oh my gosh, if it's capable of beating arguably one of the most intelligent people in the world, what does the future hold for us? So I just began to really follow the technology. And at the time, we were kind of in this AI winter because everyone was really focused on crypto and Web3 space. And ultimately, like I said, LLMs hadn't come out at the time. And again, AI isn't a new space. It's been around since about the 80s. But the idea of an LLM came around in 2020.
And by LLM, you mean a learning module?
A large language model. That's correct.
Large language, okay.
So those are the type of AIs that we interact with on a daily basis. So that's your ChatGPT, your Gemini, your Perplexity, your Claude, Grok, etc. And those are the ones that really kind of move the needle in the space for the average consumer like yourself and I.
Yeah.
And ultimately, yeah, so about 2022, that's when 3.5 from OpenAI was released to the public. And that's when I really realized that this technology is going to alter the way we do everything, whether it's in a business context or a personal context. And after that, I dove headfirst into the space. So I got a job as an AE working for a company in Toronto while I was in school. And I was selling at the time the very first generation of LLM-based products, and I learned a ton about the space. And then about 18 months ago, I jumped in for myself and opened up my own firm.
Excellent. What's the firm doing now? What do you specialize in? Is there a name to it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the firm's called XP&T. About 18 months ago, while I was still in school, I got into the space on my own and opened my own firm up and ultimately began consulting for just local businesses and anyone who needed assistance. And I was able to grow that to a point now where we work with a lot of SMBs and some enterprise clients as well to develop either custom implementation solutions or some of our core offerings, which range from an entire end-to-end sales agent, a voice agent, as well as some others. And then on the other end of things, I also help companies get found within these models because ultimately something I had noticed almost a year ago now was that there wasn't a lot of discussion about the next stage of SEO, search engine optimization. Obviously, that's dominated digital marketing for the past 15 years. Companies have paid thousands of dollars month to month to have their name on that first page of Google in one of those 10 blue links. But the reality is today's consumers are no longer looking there. They're going to those models they trust. They're going to the ChatGPT. They're going to the Gemini because those are the models they communicate with on a daily basis. There's that established trust as if they're an advisor for both personal and professional matters. So it just makes sense that's who they're going to ask for their purchasing decisions. And we're seeing that in the data. One visitor coming from ChatGPT is worth 10 from a traditional blue link. So if you're a business and you're not optimizing for AI visibility, you're already losing out. So ultimately, I became really passionate about that in the past 10 months and was able to then begin helping businesses one-on-one with that. And since then, I've now been fortunate enough to join a fantastic team out of California called Cited.ai to help them develop what I believe is the next evolution of a tool to make AI visibility seamless for every business, regardless of the industry or size.
Excellent. And at Queen's, what were you studying?
So I was studying economics and business. Yeah.
Okay. And then where did the passion for AI really come from, or any of your are your parents involved in tech? It's like, how did this dream start for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I was a huge fan of the Terminator movies as a kid.
Okay.
No, I'm totally kidding. But I think it really began when I watched that Grandmaster lose to an AI, and I just thought, wow, like chess is arguably one of the most hallmark signs of human intelligence. And if an AI is capable of beating arguably the best in the world, then what's it going to be capable of doing in 10 years? And now we're seeing that come to fruition.
And now you work mostly remote.
That's correct. I work remote. I also travel a lot to see my clients. I'm fortunate enough to have clients on the East Coast and cities like Boston and New York, as well as on the West Coast, Denver and California. And
so you're traveling quite frequently?
Yes.
And you live in the Windsor-Essex area?
Yeah, I bounce around from here to there. It kind of depends which season of the year it is. But typically I try to get back here as often as I can to see my family and my known, of course.
And where did you go to high school?
So I went to Sandwich Secondary, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what year did you graduate?
I graduated in 2020, so a really interesting year to get out of high school. But
yeah, I was 2018, so you're probably about. I'm turning 26 this year, so
fellow Sabre.
No, from Amherst actually.
Okay, right on that.
So yeah, great school. Now we'll talk about like your personal life. So outside of AI, you're involved in Ironmans. You actively run and train. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it's kind of spiraled into a passion of mine. I mean, about 3.5 years ago, I decided in the new year, funny enough, so right on that dot now, that I wanted to make a change in my life. And prior to that, I hadn't really run at all. So I decided to just kind of kick on the shoes and get out for a run that day. And I figured what better motivation than to try to do it for a good cause. So I decided to sign up for my first marathon, impromptu, 10 weeks out. And figured I'd try to raise as much money as I can.
10 weeks out.
10 weeks out, man. And I figured I'd try to raise as much money as I can for the local Humane Society chapter. And that was when I was at Queen's, so ultimately it was for the Kingston chapter. But it kind of spiraled into a hobby and then a passion of mine. And since then, I've tried to step it up year to year. I mean, I'm a big proponent of the Misogi, which is doing one difficult thing every year. So for the past 4 years, it's kind of tapered between either an ultra marathon or an Ironman or just climbing a higher mountain. So,
yes, I read about that. You've climbed a few mountains.
I've climbed a few mountains, Lyndon. That's true, man.
Well, I forget, what are the was it? What was the one that you climbed recently?
Chimborazo or Washington?
I think it was Chimborazo that I saw.
Yeah, Chimborazo.
What was that like?
It was an experience, man. I mean, Chimborazo is a really interesting mountain because if you're measuring from the equator, it's technically the highest mountain in the world. Again, obviously Everest takes the cake there with the elevation game, but the top of Chimborazo is technically the closest point to the stars in the world. So it was a really incredible opportunity to be able to get up there and see it firsthand. And it was difficult for sure. But ultimately, I was really grateful for the experience and, of course, the training that came with it.
This was by yourself?
With a buddy of mine, actually.
Wow. Yeah. And was there any training? I mean, you're not training too much for mountain climbing in Windsor-Essex. Unless you go to Malden Park. But.
Malden Park's a great spot, man. But yeah, I mean, ultimately training around here, I mean, mountain climbing comes down to a few things. Obviously, your compound lifting as well as kind of your endurance. So as long as you're doing those long runs and you're lifting pretty heavy in the gym, you'll be set. I'm a big fan, though, of altitude gyms. There's a great one in Michigan, in Fenton, actually, called Peabody Ice Climbing. Shout out Garrett, great guy and really great facility. So I recommend if anyone's interested in kind of dabbling above 600 meters, or 6,000 meters, excuse me, that they check out that gym for sure.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, ultimately it just comes down to kind of those two modalities of training.
And now going back to business, as Chief Growth Officer at Cited.ai, are you focused primarily on sales? Are you on the back end? What goes on that you can share?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it comes down to the intersection of strategy and product. Ultimately, my day is kind of split between the two. So thinking about what channels we can reach them at, how we can really show them the value, that takes a lot of my day. And then on the other side of that, it's translating all of my experience in the space, building tools myself, using other vendors throughout my history of scaling AI discovery for brands, and how we can kind of take some of the strongest pieces of those and then implement them into our tool and then build up even better functionality through it. So it's kind of just getting on calls with our product team, with our engineers, and really making sure that our product is the best in the space.
And now AI, there's been a boom, I think, as of 2025 when ChatGPT started. You obviously saw this coming well before anybody else did, right?
I mean, yeah. So ChatGPT 3.5 came out in 2022.
2022, okay.
And that was ultimately, in my opinion, when the boom really started.
Really? Okay.
Because I remember being a student sitting there and realizing, wow, like this thing can write a paper for you in an hour. I mean,
Yeah.
funny enough, I was A/B testing it, and I wrote a paper with it, and I ended up getting the highest grade in the class. Which at the time, to preface, this wasn't technically cheating because no institution was aware of the technology yet. But it really amazed me. And again, this was in its nascency stage. So it couldn't search the web in real time. It was only trained up to data from, I believe, 6 months prior, so almost 2021. And again, it was really bad at structuring outputs. Since then, it's evolved to essentially an operating system where you can open up ChatGPT and you can send emails, you can book a full-on trip, you can schedule meetings on Slack or Google Calendar with it. I mean, ultimately, there's no need to really leave the application. And on the other end, Google, their biggest competitor, is integrated into all the G Suite apps. So you can use their LLM in Sheets, in Docs, or in Gmail. So
yeah.
Either way you slice it, if you are in a professional setting, AI is going to meet you there every time. And if you're not leveraging it to just increase your operational efficiency, you're losing already.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a big fan of that. I think it's really important that everyone take the time to really identify problems that they can leverage these native AI functionalities.
And how would you recommend like a small business who's been doing it for decades, never went down the I guess the whole of AI? Where do they start? Like what's the first steps a small, medium-sized business should take?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I'm sure you're aware of the statistic. Over 90% of AI implementation strategies fail, and that's not isolated to SMBs. That's large enterprise companies like Coca-Cola even. And the reason they fail is because there's a misalignment there. There's this misconception that if you just throw a bunch of AI tools at a problem, that will solve it. But the reality is there's so many nuances involved. Every business is so different. So if you're not aligning stakeholders, your sales team, your marketing team, then your finance team, then ultimately you're going to miss out on how to best implement it and make sure everyone is adopting it properly. And I think SMBs, when they're thinking about how to best implement AI, need to first focus on what problem they're trying to solve. There's a huge issue and misconception in the space right now, and that's the more tools you throw at an AI project, the better the outcome, and that's not the case. I mean, the reality is, as you've seen, the statistics, over 90% of AI implementation projects fail, from small SMBs to large enterprise companies. And it's not because the capital isn't there. It's simply because whoever's implementing it isn't aligned with both the nuances of the business and the capabilities of the tech. Because the reality is that the tech is there. I mean, any capability you realistically need AI to complete, it can do. Mm-hmm. Now, if you're implementing it incorrectly, it's going to fail. You need to make sure that your inputs are clean. You need to make sure that you've identified the problem. You need to make sure there's alignment across all the stakeholders involved, so whether that's sales, marketing, finance, etc. If you do those three things and then you implement it to solve one clear problem, it will succeed every time.
Jake, what are some great applications you've seen businesses implement?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's just such a broad spectrum, Lyndon, to be honest with you. I mean, we've helped PE firms actually build due diligence engines with an LLM that can determine whether or not a company is ready for acquisition based off different pillars, which, again, would take a junior associate hours and hours to do. An LLM now does in seconds based off this ingestion of data from transcripts, documents, CSVs, etc. And on the opposite end of things, like we've built out engines that creative agencies use to provide tons of marketing content for their clients. I mean, again, in the past, you'd have to spend hours having someone write out all the copy for your blog section, generate your meta ads, in Adobe or in Figma. And now you can pretty much generate them in a couple iterations using something like Gemini. So it really depends the role. I mean, we did a really interesting one recently for an accounting firm out of Boston where we essentially replaced the role of a junior analyst entirely. In the United States, there's a tax credit called the R&D 41 tax credit. And essentially, it is a huge value add if you're a startup in the space, because essentially you can get up to $500,000 to $1 million back in tax credit because it takes all of the... we did a really interesting one recently for an accounting firm in Boston for the R&D 41 tax credit, which is super valuable to startups in the United States. I mean, they can save anywhere from $500,000 to $1 million annually by using it. But the problem is there's a lot of manual lift involved on the accounting side to actually go about executing it. First, you need to obviously ask a series of questions to the client to determine whether or not they're qualified. Then you need to generate the report based off those nuances and then ultimately review it before submitting it to the government to try to get that credit for them. We were able to build on an agent that not only asks those questions and ingests all of it, but then also determines based off the qualifying questions if they are eligible for that credit. And if so, then it would go and generate the report, and prior to submitting, just send it to a senior leader in that firm to ensure it's obviously correct. And then after that, submit it to the government.
That's
so it's
And now for somebody like myself that's in the mortgage space, I'm a mortgage agent, I guess what tools should I be using, right?
Yeah, that's a great question, Lyndon. I'd have to ask you, what's the biggest problem you face on a day-by-day basis, or what's the biggest time suck?
I would say lead follow-up.
Okay.
We do initial application intake. Send out, it's like client experience as a questionnaire, and then documents we need that the system automatically lets them know what we need. And then it's the follow-ups. Hey, we haven't got your documents yet. We haven't, the application hasn't been submitted yet. So I have an assistant that does a lot of that follow-up. That's time-consuming. Social media content is always a tough one. So
For sure.
I'm recording that by myself and editing a quick 7-second video. I want to get into the YouTube space a little bit more. Underwriting, like actually packaging the deal, sending it in for an approval, that can be time-consuming. Lead gen is always a difficulty for any business owner. And SEO, right? Like,
of course.
That's huge. I've invested a decent amount of money into that. So I guess those would be the main ones.
Yeah, for sure. So just top of mind, in terms of social media content, I would recommend you kind of set up an engine with something like HeyGen, using 11 Labs to clone your voice. And then HeyGen will take your likeness. So then ultimately all you need to do is simply send a trigger, whether it's through WhatsApp or Gmail or even kind of the agent you build out yourself. And from there, it'll just go about creating these 7 to 15-second value-add reels that will automatically be posted to your channels, whether it's any kind of meta product like Instagram, whether it's YouTube, TikTok, etc.
How realistic is it? Because I know there's some videos where it's like, okay.
For sure.
You know what I mean?
It's a great question. I mean, I'm a big proponent of kind of melding both HeyGen and 11 Labs together, and I find the outcome is definitely past the point of uncanny where it seems like a real person. But ultimately, yeah, there are some products where you see it and it's the immediate realization that's not a real person. But I will say AI UGC is getting really, really good. Like, I'd be willing to bet you've probably seen 2 to 3 AI ads on your social media in the past week that you didn't realize were AI. And it's only going to increase from there because it's ultimately way cheaper for these companies to generate these AI UGC vids as opposed to hiring an influencer for a couple $1,000 or trying to hire a UGC creator themselves and worry about all that overhead. But ultimately, yeah, for the actual social media generation and whatnot, there's definitely some tools at your disposal to help alleviate that manual lift involved there. Mm-hmm. Now, in terms of actual kind of lead management, are you using any CRMs?
Yes, so we have our company has a CRM called Velocity.
Okay.
That does most of the customer relationship management that you would need, but there's other platforms like Blue Mortgage or other very specific ones that can be implemented for sure.
Definitely. I mean, I would say if any of them have an API key, it's as simple as taking that and then building out an agent with that API key. Mm-hmm. For anyone not familiar, an API key is essentially the key that unlocks the doorway for an AI agent to then enter that application and perform a task autonomously. So it's a huge value unlock if they provide them. But on the other end, if not, I would recommend looking at products like ClickUp, for example, which is a great CRM tool that's very, very malleable. And they have these native agents that you can set to perform a task on a daily trigger or after a specific action is taken. And they can do anything from, create a full-on document to follow up via email to determine kind of the sentiment of a client and their health score. So big proponent of that as well. But overall, yeah, in terms of lead gen itself, there's so many different systems you can generate. I mean, we've made systems that will follow up with clients, but I'm a big proponent of ClickUp because ClickUp has these native agents. So in terms of following up for document processing, for example, there is a trigger you can set where if you don't hear back within 3 or 5 days, whatever it may be, it will actually go ahead and send an email just to follow up with that client to try to receive that documentation. And if not, it'll then escalate it to let you know. Wow. And that's just, again, that's the tip of the iceberg for what those native agents are capable of. That's why I'm such a big proponent of companies doing an audit to determine what tools are already at their disposal because, again, although like the big players in the game like ChatGPT and Gemini are continuously iterating new products, the reality is that a lot of legacy companies are beginning to roll out their own native AI products that have ChatGPT as the brain, for example. So leveraging those first is a huge, huge value add in my mind because it costs no additional money because you're already paying for that subscription month to month.
Yeah.
But ultimately, you can go ahead and build out entire lead engines that don't even live on any of these CRMs. We've built out tools that will go and find a list of 1,000 leads and then begin sequencing them through email, through SMS, through even calling. Ultimately, it's really dependent on what you find will move the needle the most and get that client in the door for a discovery call. But those are all avenues you should definitely be leveraging to free up more time in your day-to-day.
Crazy where AI can take your business from a growth standpoint, right? And those that aren't are falling behind.
Definitely. I mean, Gartner reports that by 2027, any business that uses AI will outpace their competitor by over 25%. Wow. And that's just a recent statistic. We're already seeing the statistics. I mean, last year, I think companies that implemented AI saw a 40% increase in operational efficiency, and that was across the board. So I do really think that the tide is turning now, and if you're not riding the AI wave, you should definitely pick up a board. So
cool. I love that saying. That's awesome. AI is changing faster than most people can actually learn it.
It is.
How can somebody stay ahead of AI?
Yeah, it's a great question, Lyndon. I mean, truthfully, I think if you master the basics, you understand how to prompt properly, you understand the capabilities that tools like ChatGPT, Gemini, and vibe coding tools like Lovable are capable of now, and you use them consistently to address kind of those clear problems you've identified, you will be ahead, because the reality is those are going to be the products that continue to innovate day to day and iterate faster than others. Now, granted, there's a lot of newcomers in the space that will provide a ton of value, but truthfully, if you are not actively trying to pursue a role in AI and you just want to best leverage it for your day-to-day, I highly recommend just getting really, really comfortable using those accessible tools, mastering them, and then applying them to whatever your use case is, instead of kind of worrying about whatever the next big thing coming into the space is.
And what do you think the next big thing is?
It's a great question. I mean, we're at this really interesting point here where companies have all this capital allocated towards AI development, and we're seeing it still continue to innovate exponentially. But the problem is the computing power. So obviously, I'm sure you're aware that they're building these massive, massive plants to put all these chips in so then they can train the models and obviously provide more power to them. But we're getting to a point here where that's not sustainable. That's why there's this push now to get data centers up into space where it'll be cheaper and it'll be cooling just by the fact that, you know, space is so cold. But I do think once they solve that input issue of energy, that we'll reach AGI sooner than we think. I mean, and again, AGI, which is Artificial General Intelligence, and that's pretty much when AI will be better at humans in every domain. Now, arguably now it's better at humans in a lot of them, but there's still some really nuanced things that AI isn't great at. You know, if you ask it to regenerate an image, for example, a few times, and you get really frustrated because it's not coming out, there's an issue right there.
Yeah,
right?
I've faced that too. You're like asking it to generate something, and then you're like, take this part out, and then what it does is it just gives you the same image again. You're like, okay, you didn't do anything for me.
You weren't listening to me.
And then you're starting to yell at ChatGPT and, you know, do it now.
Exactly.
Get a little angry in the prompt section, but
hey man, it happens to the best of us.
Yeah.
You know?
But now somebody's looking to get into your space. You obviously started fresh out of university, jumped right into it. What would be your advice to somebody that's looking to be in the AI space and they're a young professional? What steps should they take?
It's a great question, and it's contextually dependent, right? So if you are in school and you're a computer science major, I highly recommend you get really, really comfortable using, for example, Claude Code or even something like Cursor. That way, when you go and you're applying to those SWE roles, your output is that much greater than your peers who aren't. Because the reality is, I've seen it firsthand. While that code is very messy, a great engineer is able to use that to 10x their output. So that's what I recommend in the more technical space. Now, if you're someone and you're in arts and science like myself, and you really have absolutely no idea how to use it right now, and you know maybe you're prompting GPT occasionally to write an email, whatever the case may be, you need to master the fundamentals of tools like ChatGPT, of Lovable, and then begin to kind of elevate your technical depth as you go. So then get more comfortable using a tool like Cursor, and then begin to kind of think like, how can I apply skills I'm really great at? And then you need to begin to think, what are some problems I can address with these tools that I'm now very comfortable using? But again, it starts at ground zero, just getting really, really comfortable using something like ChatGPT, understanding how to prompt them properly, understanding how it can actually be used and what its limitations are. So that would be my advice there. And then, I mean, ultimately, if you're in a middle management position, think, what problems do I face on a daily basis? Or what's some manual, tedious task I do every day that is just so monotonous I'm not thinking about it? that I could realistically replace with an AI agent, and then take the time to figure out how to learn that. So you can either use something like N8N to build your own agent. You can use a vibe coding tool, or, I mean, realistically, you can ask ChatGPT and it'll give you a super complex step-by-step with actual code, and you can take that into something like Cursor. Again, though, it starts with just understanding what the limitations and the capabilities are of those base models, those LLMs like ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini.
And what are 3 top AI tools that you use?
It's a great question. I mean, I love Cursor personally.
Cursor? Okay, so what's Cursor?
So Cursor is a vibe coding tool. So essentially, it'll write code for you line by line, which is really cool. Again, ChatGPT is a cornerstone, but I will say more often than not, I'm leaning more so towards Gemini, just because it's integrated into the full G Suite product line. Also because their image model is way better. But other than those two, I'd also recommend something like N8N. If you're really
N8N?
N8N, that's correct. Or if you're a little less technically adept and you kind of want to dabble into the automation agent space, try something like Make.com. Those are really great entry-level tools that require no code. But
so many.
Yeah.
So many tools.
Yeah, there are a lot of tools there. I mean, I have a full-on toolbox that I typically provide clients. So if anyone's interested, please feel free to reach out. Happy to share that.
Awesome.
But the reality is I can't recommend any specific tools for the individual until they kind of identify how they want to use them, right?
Exactly. What's the problem they're facing? Right.
Exactly. And also, what is your goal? Because if you want to do stuff in the creative space, then I would recommend Higgsfield, for example, which is an awesome product that allows you to use kind of all of the most cutting-edge video and image gen models. But again, if you're kind of in the more technical space and you're doing something like parsing a lot of CSV files in finance, then I would recommend using Gemini or Claude, right? Mm-hmm. So it goes back to that contextual dependency. But overall, there's so many great tools out there.
Amazing. And how can folks that are watching, they want to learn about the AI space, they want to get in touch with you, Jake, what's the best way to do it?
Yeah, for sure. So please feel free to reach out to me over email. It's just my full name @gmail.com. And if you're trying to learn about the AI space, I would recommend simply asking these AI models. I mean, ChatGPT has a great study mode as well as access to some of the most cutting-edge educational forums in the world. So highly recommend just using what's at your disposal now. Excellent.
Well, I really appreciate you making the time to be here, Jake, and catching everyone up on the latest AI trends and what you're doing in your business and with Cited, and excited to see where AI takes us in the future. And for those that are watching that want to rewatch the episode, visit coffeewithcrainer.com.